Son las 10 de la noche y es la hora de opinar. Hoy continuamos con nuestra cobertura especial desde la Feria Internacional del Libro en Guadalajara. Y hoy le vamos a tener un programa muy especial, una gran conversación con un gran autor. Uno de los mejores escritores, me atrevería a decir, de Estados Unidos en la actualidad. Vamos a platicar con Paul Auster acerca de su carrera literaria, de sus principales novelas, de la trilogía de Nueva York, de sus influencias literarias, de Trump, de Nueva York, de la Universidad de Columbia, en fin, desde luego también desde su más reciente novela 4321. Vamos a tener una gran charla con Paul Auster. Así que quédese aquí en Foro TV que ya comenzó la hora de opinar.
Paul Auster nació en Newark, Estados Unidos, en 1947. Es escritor, guionista y director de cine. Entre sus libros más conocidos se encuentran la trilogía de Nueva York, Moon Palace, El libro de las ilusiones y Brooklyn Follies. Después de 7 años de no publicar, presenta en la FIL Guadalajara 4321.
Bueno, nos da un enorme gusto tener a uno de los grandes, de verdad, autores estadounidenses, a Paul Auster. Paul Auster es escritor, guionista, director de cine, tiene una vasta obra, desde luego entre sus libros más conocidos se encuentra la trilogía de Nueva York de 1987, Moon Palace, La música del azar, El libro de las ilusiones y Brooklyn Follies. Como usted sabe, pues ha recibido innumerable cantidad de premios, entre otras recibió el premio Príncipe de Asturias de las Letras de 2006. Paul, thank you for being here. It's really an honor to have you here.
I'm happy to be back in Mexico.
Thank you very much for being here. And you have a new book. This book, 4321.
Yeah.
Tell me what is the plot?
The plot.
What's about?
Well, it's the story of a young man's life.
Yes.
Someone born the same year I was born.
Okay.
But I should say, not an autobiographical book.
Okay.
But is my period. Now, and the thing about the way the story is told is that I tell 4 parallel versions of his life.
Okay.
Archie Ferguson, that's his name.
Yes.
And there are 4 of him. They're identical human beings, genetically identical with the same parents.
Okay.
But in each instance, they grow up in a different town, different things happen to the family, and each one of the Fergusons evolves in a different way.
Okay.
That's essentially it. And I take him from birth to early adulthood.
So it's serendipity kind of...
No, it's just parallel worlds.
Parallel worlds.
The parallel worlds that don't intersect. And I think probably there are a couple of sources of the book, but I think the big one is the question I think we all ask ourselves, what if?
What if?
What if? What if my parents had been rich?
Yes.
What if my parents had been poor? What if my father had been killed?
Yeah.
What if I had grown up during the middle of a war? What if I had done this or that? Circumstances X, Y, Z. Same human being, but different physical circumstances. Then the choices you make as well. Why did I go left that day instead of right?
But that's part of your work. You love that kind of...
But doesn't everyone think about these things?
Absolutely. But I wanted to ask you, because I am kind of an obsessive, and when I talk about this, I am always thinking about what if this, what if that, you know?
Yeah.
Are you kind of obsessive in that regard?
Well, listen, I think, for example, this.
Yeah.
I've been married now almost 37 years to Siri Hustvedt. Mm-hmm. Whom I met in early 1981. Mm-hmm. She was just turning 26. I was just turning 34.
Okay.
Now, we had only one acquaintance in common in the entire universe, right? And we met at a poetry reading in New York City.
Okay.
Now, I happened to go there because someone I knew was reading, and I wanted to support her. But I had just come back from a trip and was very tired, and thought, do I have to go? Well, yeah, I think I should go.
You were like...
But there's a possible that I could have stayed home.
Yeah.
And then the fact that she was there with the one person we knew in common, and that we got introduced, seems to me that that was the only evening in the entire history of the world that I could have met her.
Exactly.
There's no other chance.
Yeah.
And I slipped through this time-space crack, and I found her. She's made all the difference in my life. I wouldn't be the same person without her. Not to speak of our extraordinary 30-year-old daughter, never would have been born. And so, how not to think about this?
It's luck, destiny.
I don't know. It's just how the world works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes that was a happy outcome.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's horrible. It's tragic, even deadly at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you just don't know. You're just there because you're there for this 72 reasons why you're there, and something happens or doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, let me go back to the New York trilogy. I love the New York trilogy. Big success for you, and an unconventional story of detectives. What was your inspiration for the trilogy?
For that, it really was material that I'd been thinking about and working on for years before I wrote. You see, I had a funny trajectory as a writer. Early on, as a teenager, I already knew I wanted to be a writer. Okay. Whether I'd succeed was another question, but I wanted to do it, and I was doing it.
You had very clear that idea.
I just, about 16 on, I wanted to do it. And I was writing stories and poems. Okay. And when I got to be college age, university age, 18, 19, I thought of the ideas for some of the books that I was later able to write. But I think there's about 1,000 pages of material from those years, 18 to 23, of novels that I couldn't finish, ideas that I wasn't skilled enough to deal with. But City of Glass was one of these books. Started very early. And then when I was about 23 or 4, I said, I can't do this. I'm a failure as a prose writer. I'll just stick to writing poetry. And for many years, that's all I did, was write poems and essays and translations. But I didn't try fiction because I felt I had failed at it. But later on, I started writing prose again after my father died. I was 31 then. And I had all this material. And I started reading through it, and I realized that some of it was pretty good. So there are ideas, passages in City of Glass that I wrote when I was 20 years old. All the things about someone walking through the streets of New York, and his footsteps are spelling out letters. That comes from when I was a boy. Or the crazy conversation about Don Quixote. That was when I was a student, I wrote that. But then I managed to pull all this stuff together because something happened, something real happened that I wrote about. And I was writing the book, The Invention of Solitude, which precedes the trilogy. And I was sitting at home in Brooklyn in my little shitty apartment. And the telephone rang, and I pick up, and the man on the other end said, "Is this the Pinkerton Agency?" Now, the Pinkerton Agency is a very well-known detective agency in the United States. They've been, ever since the 19th century, they've been there. Absolutely. I said, no, you have the wrong number, and I hung up. And I went back to writing my book. Next day, phone rings again. Is this the Pinkerton Agency? And I said, no, wrong number, and I hung up. But that second time, I said, why did I do that? Why didn't I say yes? And start talking to this person and find out what case was going on. And then I kept waiting for the phone to ring again. So I hung up the second time. And I kept hoping he would call back a third time and I would be able to say yes. And that's what happens in the beginning of City of Glass, if you remember.
Yes, yes.
Quinn, a writer, gets a call for Paul Auster, the detective. And he says no, And then the third time he says yes, and then the whole thing unleashes itself. Yeah.
Wow.
That was it. It was the real event. So, as I wrote in the Red Notebook some years later, the strange thing was that not long after I finished writing the New York trilogy, I was again in that room, and again the phone rang, and this time the person asked for Mr. Quinn. Quinn is the name of the name of my character from City of Glass.
Yes.
And he said, "Is this Mr. Quinn?" He had a Spanish accent.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe he was saying Queen, like Queen. No, he spelled it out Quinn.
Yeah.
And I said, no. And I hung up. I was so shaken that now suddenly I had become a fictional character myself.
Well, quite a story, no?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's always,
Did you have the third time, the third call? I mean, in reality?
No.
Never?
No, this is what novelists do. They make things up. We invent things. But if these real calls hadn't happened, I don't think I would have thought of the idea for the book.
No, wow, wonderful story.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes in your book, there is a frequent sense of imminent disaster. and it's funny, it's very funny, but it's also very distressing. Is that the objective of that kind of drama?
Well, I think it depends on what book we're talking about.
Yeah.
I can think of some books that really explore what I would call the territory of dread.
Yeah.
The Music of Chance being one of them. The Book of Illusions being another.
Yes.
But other books, less so. Oracle Night being another one. But other ones, no. I mean, to say the Brooklyn Follies, we don't feel dread. But that's a comedy. It's my one consciously written comedy. I don't know, in Moon Palace, do we feel a lot of dread? Perhaps.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
somehow, I would say.
At times.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've tried to explore.
It's emotions. I mean,
Yes.
I like your work because it's full of emotions.
Yes.
No?
Yes, it's all about feeling.
Yeah.
I don't know why some people around the world, they think I'm just this clever postmodernist, but I'm not. I'm really very stupid, and I write from a very basic point of view.
Yeah.
And I don't consider myself modernist, postmodernist, pre-modernist, anything. I just do what I do. And
that's an interpretation of the critics, no?
Yes. Yeah.
What you like is to write.
Yeah.
I mean, no?
And I want to tell stories. This is fundamental. Often I don't even think of myself as a novelist, but as a storyteller.
Yeah.
And I'm just as inspired by fairy tales as I am by novels.
Yeah.
And mostly I haven't written the kinds of books that most novelists do. It's not that I'm not interested in society, I am very much, but in a lot of my earlier books, they were taking place in a kind of hermetic realm of where questions of philosophy, psychology, and just human existence were at issue. I think as I've gotten older, my capabilities have expanded, and also my interests have shifted, and so that in a book like the new one, I very consciously wanted to talk about the environment that all the boys were living in. Because it's a book about the time and the place as much as about the individuals inside it.
There is another perspective in this new book?
Yeah, I would say so. But I would say it's been alluded to, I think, in the books previous, Sunset Park, which was really set in the now. It was set in the now of the economic crisis of 2008 and 9. It was the only book I've ever written in the present tense, the only book about things that were happening a month or two before I wrote about them. And then Invisible, too. There's this sense of the bigger world outside these characters, colonial wars, the Vietnam War, etc. So, look, it's a big world out there, and
there are many.
A book cannot encompass everything.
Yeah.
But maybe bit by bit, over all the years of a writer's life, he or she can begin to explore different areas of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, let me make a commercial break and we will come back. Hacemos una breve pausa, regresamos con el gran Paul Auster.